right. So today we're talking about editing audio, strip silence, playlists, comping, stuff like that. So let's just go over a little review about clips, what we learned last week, just to kind of touch on that again. Remember that clips are what hold the data in Pro Tools. It's audio or MIDI data. And this is where all your information lies in Pro Tools. So what I'm going to do here is I've got Pro Tools open, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my recent session here. And if you've got a session that you've been working on and you want to just go ahead and open that up, what you can do is you can go to File, Open Recent, and I'm just going to click on the name here. If it's the last session you've been working on, you can also hit Command-Shift-O. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. And this is the Pro Tools Lab 2 that we were working on last week. So this is what we were messing with last week. And as you can see here, I've got all my playlists here. Remember, I did that recording and it made all those playlists. So I can go ahead and I can make these a bit bigger so I can see them all if I wanted to. Or if I don't want to see my playlists, I can just go here and look at my waveform. So I'm just seeing one playlist at a time. So the way you can choose what you're looking at on your track is right here on the left hand side. Now if your track is small, see how I can resize this track? I can click on this gray area right here. It looks like a ruler. I can click on this and I can make my track bigger or smaller. Alternatively, you can also click and drag down here on the bottom of the track to make it bigger and smaller. But if my track is really small like this, you're not going to see over here, it's not going to show you your track view. It's just going to, whatever you're looking at is what you're going to be looking at. So if I want to make this a little bit bigger to small, see where it says wave here? That's going to show me what I'm actually looking at on the track. And you can see I've got a couple of options here. Blocks, playlists, analysis, and warp. These are grayed out right now. We're going to talk about those tomorrow. Waveform, volume, mute, pan, all these here. Normally it's going to be waveform, and maybe if you're doing automation stuff, some volume, mute, pan, things like that. But mostly you're going to be looking at the waveform view, which is just your standard view of your track here. You can see my audio here. But if I wanted to see my playlists, I can go here and look at my playlists here, and I can see all my different playlists. And we're going to come back and talk about that in a minute. For now, we're just going to view one playlist at a time. That's the waveform view here. And like I mentioned the other day, if I wanted to see different playlists, we can choose them right here. But again, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Right now, what I want to do is I just want to remind you about some stuff with the clips view, and we're going to be talking about our different tools here. So first of all, you can see I've got my smart tool turned on, so it's got my trim tool over here on this side. I can trim that. I can go to the other side by hitting my arrow key to the right, and I can trim this around here as well. If I want to select stuff in the middle of my clip, I just mouse here into the center, and it's my selector tool, and down here is my grabber tool, and I can move it around. If I don't like the position that I put it in, I can hit Command-Z to undo that. All right. So that's our clip thing here, just a little review of this. And the clips list, if I want to see all my clips that I've got in here, I can hit this little arrow key down on the bottom corner, down here, click on that, and now I can see all my clips and my clips list here. So all the things I've recorded. Now, just one thing about this clips list, you'll notice that some of these are bold and some of them are normal text. The bold ones are actually the full audio file on my computer. So what the actual recording on my computer is this one right here. And if I edit, let me just go so I can find that first one. I think it's not that one, maybe this one. No, is it even in here? You can see that these are actually just kind of variations of that one. I think this one maybe not even be in here. So let me just show you something here. If I drag in, let me just back up here a little bit. I'm going to drag in this one here, this one here. This is the very first thing I recorded the other day. And you can see if I drag in it, it's the full audio file. But if I start to edit this, watch what happens. See over here in my clips list, it changed that to a small one with a -01 on the end. That's because I edited the clip. So let me just do that one more time. I'm going to delete that out of here. I'm going to pull this one in. going to put that right there. And if I edit this, now it's going to become another clip. If I drag this one in, it's my first edit I made. If I drag this one in, it's my second edit I just made, which actually makes it the same as this one over here. But if I drag this one back, now it becomes this one again. So Pro Tools just kind of sees what you're doing with your clips list over here and all these different ones. Now if I delete these out, these stay in here, some of them. So one of them just deleted. I'm not exactly sure why that one deleted and the other one didn't. That's like a Pro Tools thing, how Pro Tools just does this. So with this one here, you can see this is this edit right here. And that's how that works with your clips list over here. So I'm going to go ahead and close the clips list because the other stuff we already talked about. But you can remember there's audio clips, MIDI clips, and we've got groups as well. But we'll talk about those another time. Clip selection here. Now, before we talk about that, let's just do a little review of our tools here. And we've got our trim tool, our selector tool, our grabber tool, and all together those are the smart tool there. And if you have a keyboard, a normal keyboard or whatever, you've got it set so you see your function keys across the top. Those function keys are going to be different shortcuts for these tools. And so I've got my trim tool here, I've got my selector tool, and I've got my grabber tool. And these are all up across the top. And it just starts with your F keys and goes across. So it's actually pretty easy to remember. The zoom tool is F5, the trim tool is F6, selector tool is F7, and grabber tool is F8. So that's these tools here. Now, what's in the notes here is the clip selection here. If I have my selector tool here, I can do different things to select my clip in different ways. So if I just have my selector tool, which I've got selected right now, if I just click and drag, it's going to select sections of my clip. And what I can do is I can actually just, once I've selected that part of the clip, I can just delete that part like that. If I want to select my whole clip with my selector tool, I just double click 1, 2. If I wanted to select every clip in the track, so let's say, for example, if I have more clips in the track, I can triple click 1, 2, 3 like that, and it will select all my clips in the whole track. If I delete them, all the clips will disappear. I can also drag across clips by just clicking and holding and dragging and hit delete on these. I can also hold down Shift and select stuff over to the right or to the left of that selection. And the way Pro Tools does it is if you hold down Shift, you're going to, wherever you're closest to, so if I'm closest to the end of my selection, it's going to adjust the end of the selection. If I'm closest to the beginning of my selection, it's going to adjust the beginning of the selection. So I'm just holding Shift right now. I've just got my Shift key pressed down, and I'm just kind of clicking around here. All right, and once again, I can just double click, hit delete like that, and just delete everything right there. So I don't need all those selected. Now, one thing about zooming, if I'm zooming using command brackets here, it's going to zoom on my selection. So I can use my selector tool to tell it where I want to zoom. So for example, if I want to zoom in on this waveform right here, I just select it with my selector tool and I zoom in, and you can see it zooms into that selection. Now, as you can see, it zooms into the beginning, the start point of the selection. If I want to zoom in and I want to get to my end point, what I do is I just zoom in a lot and I hit the right arrow key, and that goes to the end of it. Should you be following on Pro Tools? I don't know. It's going a little bit fast. Like, I go a little bit quick with this stuff, and I feel like if you follow along on Pro Tools, it's going to go pretty slow. Because I'm recording this, what I recommend you do is you just kind of watch me go through it, and then I would recommend you go back and anything that you kind of need some refresher on, then you go back and watch the video and do it with me on the video there. If you want to, you can, but just keep in mind we do go pretty fast here, so I can slow down a bit, but I have to kind of make sure that I get through everything, and then we can come back and kind of revisit things and go a little bit slower. And we can do that in Zoom too, where you can ask me questions and stuff as well. So that's what your selector tool does for you. And that's pretty much it with the selector tool, actually. The selector tool has some cool functionality, but really it's the type of thing where you need to kind of get used to it. You need to kind of just use it and play with it, and you'll get more used to the functionality. It's not that deep of a tool. There's not a whole lot of moving pieces to it. Okay, so that's the selector tool there. Now, before we talk about the other tools, let's talk about our edit modes here. And there's 4 edit modes: shuffle, slip, spot, and grid. And these edit modes have to do with how you move things around. Now, the other day, we talked about slip and grid. We did not get into shuffle or spot mode. We had just talked about slip and grid mode. So let's just talk about those real quick again, just to review that. Right now, I've got slip mode selected. And these are up here in the upper left-hand corner. These 4 buttons right here, I can click on these and choose them. You'll notice that grid mode has an arrow key. If I click and hold down my mouse here, I can choose between absolute and relative grid modes. So those 2 grid modes are there that I can choose between. Right now, we're just going to talk about absolute grid mode for now. And what that does is that allows me to move my clip to the grid right there. Oops, sorry, that's relative grid mode. There we go, absolute grid mode. And it just starts it on the grid, the blue lines. I can change my grid right over here by changing my grid spacing here. What I recommend for your grid most of the time is bars and beats, and you can just select which one you want. The grids get smaller as you go to these higher numbers here. So if I go to 1 bar, that's a whole bar. It's going to move it by a whole bar. But if I go to quarter note, you can see that's a smaller grid. And this is actually a pretty good way for just kind of getting familiar with your different timings. Because the grid in bars and beats mode is just following musical notation. We have 1 bar, half note, quarter note, eighth note, and you can see these are all listed right here. It lists what it is for you. So if you want to learn a little bit of music theory, a little bit of musical notation, you can actually use Pro Tools to do it just by using Pro Tools and paying attention to what these are and what these are called, and looking at the grid, how it kind of divides things up. So I'm just going to keep these on the quarter note right now. And the reason I'm going to keep them on the quarter note is because when I counted this in Lab 2, I was following my quarter note. So that's the absolute grid mode. Now, what I want to do is show you slip mode here. In slip mode, what it does is it moves things off the grid. See how it's just kind of gliding along here? It's off the grid. And I'm getting it back to my start position by hitting Command Z. So I hit Command Z and it goes back to my starting position here. If I'm in slip mode and I want to select something, it just selects it like this. If I'm in grid mode and I want to select something, whoops, see how it locks to the grid there? It snaps to that grid. And that's what these edit modes are for. It's kind of depending on how you're editing things. So if I'm using my trim tool, like we talked about the other day, if I go to my trim tool over here, see how it trims it, snapping to the grid. That's in grid mode there. And if I want to do it in slip mode, I just click on this and it trims it with slip mode. See, I can go back and forth between my grid mode and my slip mode here. Like that. Okay. Now let's go back and talk a little bit about relative grid. What we talked about so far is absolute grid. Relative grid, what it does is it keeps things in relation to the grid line, but doesn't snap it to the beginning of the grid line. It's a little bit of a weird concept, but let me just show you. So first of all, again, I get to my relative grid by holding down on here, and it's this one, it's the purple one. It says rel grid. So purple is relative grid, blue is absolute grid. And I want you to pay attention here to what happens when I'm using my grabber tool and my absolute grid. This is my absolute grid, and see how the beginning right now is not on the grid line. It's between the grid lines here. But when I use absolute grid and I move it over, it snaps it to the grid line. See that? Let me just do that one more time. Boom. Does it? Snaps it to the grid line. If I wanted to use relative grid, first of all, the shortcut for that is F4. I just hit F4 and it toggles between relative grid and absolute grid. So relative grid is here. And if I go like this, if I'm using relative grid, what it does is it keeps that relative position to the grid. So I keep it and I move it like that. See that? And it moves it around like that. And it's relative to that grid. Right? And that's what relative grid mode does. And this is really cool for if you're working with beats and stuff like that. It's nice to keep the beats relative to each other. Really what I'm going to let you do is I'm going to let you kind of explore that on your own and kind of decide how you want to use that. I don't use it that much. I do use it sometimes. It depends on what I'm doing with stuff. It's really useful, for example, if I have my grid set to 1 bar and this counting is starting in the wrong bar. Maybe I started a bar too soon. And I want to keep the counting in the same place, but just 1 bar over. I just have it set to 1 bar here, relative grid mode turned on. I can click and drag it over. And now it keeps its timing within the bar, but it's just 1 bar later. I just kind of moved the whole thing over like that. So that's a pretty cool thing there with relative grid. There's lots of other ways to use it, but it's one of those things where you really have to explore. So Nico says the notes are always on the beat. Well, with relative, in this case, yeah, because my start point is off the beat here, it's off the grid. If I put it into absolute grid mode, watch what happens. It moves everything over, but now my counting is actually off the beat because my start point was off the beat. It moved everything over by that much. If I use relative grid, it's going to keep my notes, my counting on the beat, which is what we really want in this case. So for this type of thing here, I would definitely use relative grid, but if I had edited this like here, like this, and now everything started on the beat, I want it to be an absolute grid, not really relative grid. So relative grid isn't really going to make much of a change because it's already starting on the beat. But absolute grid is what I would use if it's already cut directly to the beat itself. Then I just use absolute grid. And this works for MIDI and audio. Once we get into MIDI, we'll talk about this again. So that's my grid mode. My slip mode, once again, lets me just kind of move things smoothly like this. There we go. All right. So that's those two edit modes. The other ones we're going to talk about here are shuffle and spot. Now, shuffle and spot, I don't really use too much, and it kind of depends on what you're doing as far as audio editing, if you're going to use shuffle or spot. So, for example, here's this. Let me just play what I've got for you here.
1, 2.
Let's use a voice that's not so weird sounding.
1.
It's all my weird counting I was doing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, cool. So that's me counting. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a low cut on here so we don't have all of our things here. I know, right? That's pretty funny sounding. Remember that?
1, 2, 3, 4.
The first one, yeah, sound like Grover. Or was it Grover or Oscar the Grouch? I don't remember. I started watching the Muppet movie the other night. It reminded me of that. I'm going to put a little compression on here as well. Oh, this one. Ugh. I forgot that I installed these plugins on here. Here we go. This one here is the one that comes with Pro Tools.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, here we go. So I got that there. Now what I'm going to do here is if I use shuffle mode, if I select things, so first of all you'll notice that shuffle mode kind of reacts sort of like slip mode here, but watch what happens here. If I delete, so if I select this section here and I delete them, notice what happened here. It kind of, everything moved over. So let me go ahead and do this real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and separate these out into different clips. And I'm going to color the different clips different colors. This will make things a bit easier to see. I'm also going to wait for the fire trucks to calm down. So I'm just, with my color palette here, I'm just clicking around on different colors. There we go. So you can see I've got a nice rainbow of colors here. And if I go ahead and put it into shuffle mode, it's already in shuffle mode. If I go here and I delete these, watch what happens. It's going to push everything over. It's going to get rid of the space right here. Boom. So I just moved things over like that. So if I click on this blue one here and I hit delete, it just got rid of the blue one and it moved everything over and filled in that gap. This is really great for stuff like this where I want to keep my timing. I just want to get rid of that space in the middle there, but I want to keep the timing of everything around it. The other thing shuffle mode does is it doesn't let you put a clip on top of another clip. It shuffles the clips around. So for example, if I use slip mode and I take this one here at the end and I drag it and drop it right over here, it just puts it right on top of that one and it kind of takes up that space. So if we listen,
1, 2, 3, 12, 5, 6,
like that. But if I use shuffle mode, watch what happens. I take it and I drag it over here and see how it snaps it in between the clips. It's not going to let me put it on the middle of the clip. I put it right there.
12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 6, 7, 8.
See how it puts it right there between everything, and it keeps the count going. It shuffled everything over. Let's do it with this one right here. Like that.
1, 2, 8, 9, 3, 4, 5, 6.
See how it shuffled everything over? That's what shuffle mode does. Shuffle mode, in my opinion, is really great for editing things like audiobooks and voiceovers, stuff like that. Stuff where somebody might be reading a script, and if they make a mistake, you can just like cut that mistake out and just make sure you get the timing right, and you hit delete with shuffle mode and it just moves everything over. And I'll show you an example of that here maybe in a second. So that's shuffle mode. Spot mode, as I said, I don't really use spot mode very much, and I don't use shuffle mode that much either, because I find that for making music, shuffle mode is not super useful. There are some instances where I can see it being useful, but I just never got in the habit of using it myself. If you find that you like using shuffle mode for certain things, then you should absolutely use shuffle mode. There's nothing wrong with it. I just never got in the habit of it myself. Spot mode is something that's, I have a feeling it's probably used for sound effects, special effects, movie stuff, because what spot mode does is it allows you to put something in at a very specific timing spot within your audio. So if I select spot mode and I click on a clip, what it does is it lets me put it in here into a very specific time. It pulls up this dialog screen and lets me move this around. So now I can say, I want this clip to start at bar 15. So I hit bar 15 and I hit OK. And now it's over here at bar 15. That's what spot mode does. So if I have like a sound effect, let's say I've got some clip over here on the right hand side, and it's like an explosion or a sound effect or something. If I drag it into my session, it's going to ask me where do I want to put it, and I can say, okay, I want it to go at 1 minute and 39 seconds. And boom, now it's over here at 1 minute and 39 seconds. So that's what spot mode does. There's not a whole lot to it. That's what it is. And like I said, I don't really find a use for that when I'm making music with Pro Tools. Maybe you will, great. If not, if you never use it, don't worry, you're not missing out on some kind of magical thing that Pro Tools has to offer. All right, so that's that right there. Now, that's the 4 edit modes. There's not a whole lot more to them. I will show you shuffle mode in a little bit more detail here in a minute, but before I do that, I want to kind of talk about some more things in the lesson, and we're going to come back and I want to show you shuffle mode and how it's useful a little bit later on. Now let's talk about our tools a little bit more. That's our 4 modes and our tools here. Now, what we're going to do is talk about these in detail a little bit more. So the grabber tool has 3 tools underneath it: the time tool, separation tool, and object tool. Let's talk about the object tool first. The object tool enables you to grab non-contiguous clips. What that means is, if I just got my regular grabber tool turned on, if I hold down Shift and I click over here, it's going to grab the clip plus all the clips in between. And if I go up here and I click on it and I drag down, I can select my object tool like this. I can also hit F8 a few times and it cycles through all my clips. Like that. And you can see the little symbol in here changes depending on which one you've got. And so if I wanted to, let's see, let's just put that into object mode again. If I wanted to select this one and this one, I have object mode selected, and I click on that, and now it's just selected those two. If I want to deselect them, I just click somewhere in the gray area, and with object tool I can actually just hold down Shift and select whichever clips I want to select in there. And this goes across different tracks as well. And now I've got these here and I can just move them out, or I can hold down Option, and if I drag with Option it makes a copy of them. But you can see it just pulled out those 3. Once again, if I do not have object mode selected, it'll just select all of them, and now it just moves all of them. Now, most programs do the same thing by holding down Command. I'm not exactly sure why Pro Tools decided to do it with this extra tool here. That's what they've done. That's just how that works, and so you just kind of have to get used to it. When you're using Pro Tools, that part of Pro Tools of selecting clips works a little bit differently from like Logic or Ableton Live. So that's your clips there. That's your object tool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put this back like that. The whole thing is there. And let's talk about the separation tool. The separation tool is this one right here. And if we go look at the notes, the separation tool enables you to grab and automatically separate selected portions of clips. And this right here is what the separation tool does. If you highlight a section of the clip and you use the separation tool, it's going to drag out that selection of the clip. The separation tool is actually what I use most of the time. Almost all the time that I'm working with audio, especially with my smart tool turned on, I usually use the separation tool. And this is how the normal tool in Ableton Live works, is kind of like the separation tool. So what I can do is, let's say I want to grab this one right here and drag that one out. What I can do is I can just use my separation tool. I highlight it first using my selector tool, and then I just come down here and grab it, and it moves it out without having to hold down any keys or anything like that. I don't have to switch between my different tools, and I just find this is the easiest way for me to work. If I want to drag this one out but also keep it there, if I just want to make a copy and move it out, I hold down my Option key and I drag it over here, and now it keeps it over here as well. So one more time, separation tool, I click and I drag across with my selector tool, then I move my mouse down to the bottom, it's the separation tool, and I can drag it out, and it just removes it from there. So that's what the separation tool does. It just moves it, whatever you highlighted. So Option and drag will make a copy of that little clip, that little selection that you just made. Use it with the smart tool. This is really, really important. This is in the tips right here. Use it with the smart tool. This is where it becomes most useful, because if you're switching between your different tools, you might as well just use the regular grabber tool anyway. You might as well just use Command E to separate it and then use the grabber tool. But if you're using it with the smart tool, it means that it's one less key click that you have to do. If you select a portion but realize you want the entire clip, use the grabber on a different part of the clip, with the selector tool. Okay, so or use the grabber on a different part of the clip, or double click with the selector tool. Sorry, those are two different things. So what I mean by this is like this. If I highlight this part right here, and I'm like, you know what, actually, I want to move the entire clip, not just this section. I've got my selector tool, my separation tool selected. Well, all I have to do is just click down here, and you notice that if I mouse over here, see how it's the separation tool? See my little icon here on my window? It's got the little scissors in it, and if I move over here, it does not have the scissors in it. So they're showing you, if I move over here, it's going to grab the whole entire clip. If I move here, it's just going to grab that portion of the clip. See, that just grabs the portion, but if I click here, it's going to grab the entire clip. That's one way you can do it. Another way, if I selected this portion and I realize, oh wait, I want the whole clip, I can go up here and I can double click 1, 2, and it selects the whole entire clip. They're both good for different situations. Once again, you really need to figure out what situation, how you want to use it yourself. And that's going to be, that depends on you, really. Okay, so that's that right there. This is the object tool, just kind of, excuse me, just kind of showing the object tool here. Again, clips on a track, you've got different clips. If you grab with the shift tool, you just grab with shift, just normal tool, it just selects everything. If you grab with the object tool and you hold shift, it's going to grab individual clips. All right, let's just talk about the zoom tool here for a second. The zoom tool lets me zoom in on particular parts of everything. It's not exactly one of our normal tools, but I just put it in here just so you know what it does. That's this one right here, the zoom tool, and there's two different zoom tools. There's the single zoom and normal zoom. And normal zoom just zooms, so if I use my zoom tool and I click and I drag across, it's going to zoom in on that portion of the clip. Boom, right there. If I hold down Option and I click, see how it turns into a little minus? See, it's a plus normally, and if I hold down Option, it becomes a minus. Well, if I click with the minus key, it's going to zoom out. If I click with the plus tool, with the plus key, the normal zoom, it just zooms in. Or if I want to zoom in on a particular part of my track, so for example, I want to zoom on this waveform right here, I just hold down and drag across, and it zooms into that waveform right there. There's nothing, oops, I didn't mean to do that. There's nothing mysterious about the zoom tool, it zooms. Now, the only thing that is interesting about the zoom tool is that you have this thing called a single zoom here. And single zoom, what it does is, let's say I've got my selector tool selected, and I just want to single zoom in. I can just hit F5 real quick and zoom in, and when I let go of my mouse, see how it flipped back to my selector tool automatically. I didn't click on that, it just flipped back the selector tool automatically. So now I've got my selector tool is ready to go. Well, basically what that means is that the single zoom, what it does is it zooms once, and as soon as you let go, it flips back to your previously selected tool. Whatever tool that was, whatever you were using before you zoomed, that's what it's going to go back to. So it's actually a really quick way to use it, and if you do like using the zoom tool, I recommend that you use single zoom. So learn the function key for it is F5. I've got my smart tool selected right now, and let's say I just want to zoom in on a part of the track. Let's say I want to zoom in on this one here, so I just click on it, my zoom, I click drag in once, and now it goes back to having my smart tool selected, so I don't have to keep selecting different tools. As I said, I actually prefer just using my brackets key for zooming in and out. I just highlight it and use the bracket key for it. It's just a habit that I got into a while back. I used to use the zoom tool for a while, but yeah, now I do. Antonio, are there any due assignments or ones I missed? I don't know what you missed or what you didn't miss, so I'll have to check and see what you actually turned in to answer that question. So we can talk about that in Zoom. All right, because that's going to take us too far off track right now. All right, so that's our zoom tool here. Now, let's go and talk a little bit about the option key here. The option key is our option and drag. We've got a couple things here. Now, what you'll notice though is I haven't talked about my, here, let's go back over here to the trim tool. The trim tool, we haven't really talked about this one yet. Here we have standard, TCE, and loop modes here. Let me just talk about the loop mode real quick. We're actually going to talk about TCE tool when we talk about elastic audio, which is tomorrow. So I just want to mention about the loop tool here. The loop tool just makes a loop of your clip. I'm actually not a huge fan of it. I don't really like the way the loop tool works in Pro Tools. It's okay. It doesn't work exactly the same way that looping works in Logic and Ableton Live, although it's difficult to describe what the difference is. It feels different, and in order to really understand what I'm talking about, you really need to use Logic or Ableton Live and see how they work with looping. Pro Tools, I guess it's close to how Logic does looping, but again, I'm not really a fan of how it works. So I never really use it in Pro Tools. And that's up, if you like it, then use it by all means. But it just makes a loop of the clip. And let's put it in grid mode. Whoops. And go up here to loop. So it's just looping that clip over and over again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3.
See how it just kind of looped that? So it just loops it. But it works in a kind of a strange way, which I'm not a huge fan of. So I never really use it. If I wanted to loop something in Pro Tools, I just actually highlight it and then just hit Command D to duplicate. And then, as I said, we're going to talk about the TCE tool, time compression expansion tool. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow. We're going to come back because it's actually kind of related to elastic audio in an interesting way. All right, so that's mainly our tools there. We do have here the scrub tool and the pencil tool, which again, we're going to talk about that in just a second, but I want to talk about the option key here for a minute. The option key is super useful within Pro Tools or any DAW for that matter. You've got a couple of ways to use it. You've got option drag, option click, and then option and change something, or option and insert something. So there are different ways of using it, and this is actually what I'm about to talk about is actually true, not just in Pro Tools, but also in Logic and also in Ableton Live. A lot of what I'm about to talk about kind of goes across those. So option drag, this is a standard operating system thing for the Mac or any computer. I'm pretty sure it works in Windows machines as well, but maybe not. I'm not 100% sure. But basically, if I have my my Smart Tool selected, and I hold down Option, and I drag it across, it's going to make a copy of that. That's what Option drag does. Okay, that's the first one here, and this works for clips, MIDI notes, inserts, stuff like that. So, for example, if I have a couple of tracks in here, whoops. So I've got a couple of tracks here. If I hold down Option and drag my plugin across, it's going to copy that plugin with the settings from the original instance of the plugin. So I click on this one here, you can see they're all the same, like that. And I can just get rid of these by clicking and dragging like this. And again, we'll talk about this another time. Now, if I wanted to put a certain plugin down here across all my tracks, what I can do is I can hold down Option and I insert the plugin here, and it puts that plugin across all the tracks down here. And if I want to get rid of it, I hold down Option and I get rid of it like that, and it gets rid of it across all of them. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you do want to make one plugin and change it, like inserts, like make a change on it, then if you want to have one thing and make a change on it, then what you do is you just insert it once, make the change you want to make, and then hold down Option and drag it across. And it's gonna go ahead and it's gonna make a copy of that plugin with that change. But if I just want to put a default version of the plugin on a track, I hold down Option first and I insert that plugin, and now it's just the default version of that plugin. Over here, if I look down here and if I've made some adjustments to my pan and my faders and stuff like this, well, the Option key will allow me to click on these and put them back to their default positions. So one more time, let me just show you that one more time. Like this, boom, boom, boom. Okay, I hold down Option and I click it and it puts it back to its default position. So it'll put these pan knobs back to 0 like this, like that. Okay, so that's what I can do with this here. All right, and then if I want to change the routing to one of my tracks, or sorry, to all my tracks with the same channels, mono or stereo, check this out. If I want to have all my tracks go to a different output, I hold down Option and I change the routing here to a different output, and now they all get changed to that different output here. So I can make them all go to a different output or a bus or something like that. Okay, so that's pretty cool there. I'm going to put them back to their default thing there. And that's just holding down the Option key. So as you can see, the Option key actually does a lot here. Oh, Johnny, what's up? Cool. Okay, so the Option key does a lot for stuff. All right. Cool. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to, let's make another recording real quick. Let me get rid of these tracks. And do this. All right, so we got that there. And I'm going to make a new audio track here. I'm going to give this one a name. I'm going to call this one just Story. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use shuffle mode a little bit. I want to just give you an example of how to use shuffle mode. Using the tools that we've talked about right now, let's talk about that shuffle mode. And I'm going to give you an example of how I think it would be a useful way to use it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into, let's see, let's go into Firefox and let's look up news, Google News, here we go. And let's use, okay, let's use cute news. Actually, I don't want to cute news. No, let's not get something depressing. Let's get something fun. All right, here, we'll use this one here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read this, record it in, and then show you how I would do a quick edit of this. Move this over here to the side, and here's this. Check 1, 2, check, 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 check. Let's see here, my input is set to the wrong input. Here we go. Check 1, 2, check, check, checkity, check. Yeah. All right, so this one here. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, check, 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 check. Ha, 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 check. So what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting my input here. Check 1, 2, just adjusting things. All right, so we have a decent signal going there. Okay. And if I hold down, remember, if I hold down Command and click my volume here, give me my peak. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. That's pretty good there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have any more water left. I'm just going to go ahead and record me reading this here. The Franklin County Whoa, sorry. Let me mute this. Ha ha ha. Perinatal education. That's a big word. Wow. Right off the bat, they're making me Look like I can't read. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one more time. The Franklin County Perinatal Education Center is looking for cute Franklin County babies to be featured in the agency's popular Cutest Baby Calendar. Entry forms are now being accepted, and the top 12 selected will have free professional photo. Entry forms are now being accepted, and the top 12 selected will have free professional photos taken by photographer Chelsea Green with Captured by Chelsea Photography and be featured on a designated month in the calendar. All others will also have a free professional photo taken by Green and be featured in the calendar on additional pages. The contest features babies from newborn to 18 months at the time of entry. Entries are due by 5 p.m. August 28th. There's a $25 entry fee, and a photograph of the baby is required. Photos can be returned after the contest by enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope with the entry. Photos can be returned after the contest by enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope with the entry. Okay, so we've got some stuff here. So if I wanted to edit this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and listen to it. I'm going to go ahead and put some plugins on it. I'm just going to hold down Option and drag these across. The Franklin County Perinatal Education Center is looking for cute Franklin County babies to be featured in the agency's popular Cutest Baby Calendar. Entry forms are now being accepted, and the top 12 selected will have free professional photo. Entry forms are now being... So you can see I made a mistake here, so I wanted to stop and do it again. So what I did was I went back to the beginning of the paragraph here, and I started from here. So what I can do is I just want to go and I'm going to edit this using shuffle mode. And I just kind of click here and I make sure I get the same distance over here. And now I just hit delete and everything just moved over. So if we go back and listen, the Franklin popular Cutest Baby Calendar. Entry forms are now being accepted, and the top 12 selected will have free professional photos taken by photographer Chelsea Green with Captured by Chelsea Photography and be featured on a designated month in the calendar. All others will also. And so I want to get rid of this one here, so I'm just going to go this way like this, that, get rid of that, boom, start back here. Designated month in the calendar. All others will also have a free professional photo taken by Green and be featured in the calendar on additional pages. The contest features babies from newborn to 18 months at the time of entry. Entries are due by 5 p.m. August 28th. There's a $25 entry fee, and a photograph of the baby is required. Photos can be returned after the contest by enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope with the entry. Photos can be... See, I just started that again. Go over here like this, grab that, hit delete, boom. The baby is required. Photos can be returned after the contest by enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope with the entry. Great. And I just edited that. And that's really where I would use shuffle mode. That makes some kind of sense there. And so as you can see, I just did that pretty quickly. Because I've done this type of stuff before. I've done some editing for books and voiceovers and things like that. It's not something I do very often, but I have done it, and you can see that it's quite easy if you use shuffle mode. That's pretty much the only time I use shuffle mode. So not a whole lot much to talk about there. You've seen it, and you can make a decision about how you want to use shuffle mode yourself. But that's how I would use shuffle mode. Now, you can see in here there's quite a lot of things that are not okay because I don't have a pop guard on this mic. This is just like a whatever microphone, and like there's a lot of a lot of too much breathiness and things like that. So obviously I wouldn't use this recording for a real professional gig. It would sound horrible, but you get the idea. I'm just kind of showing you shuffle mode right here. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about strip silence. In strip silence, I don't know if I would use strip silence for this. We could potentially use strip silence for this, but I think I'm just going to delete this. And I'm going to show you strip silence in the counting stuff that we did before. So I right click, I hit delete, and now let's talk a little bit about strip silence. So I'm going to go back here to the beginning. Strip silence, what this is kind of like a gate Now, if you don't really know what a gate is, a gate, what it does is it kind of takes out the silence between the sound. So, for example, if I put a gate in here, let's just listen to this counting real quick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of noise in between here, so I wouldn't really need to use a real gate. But if I wanted to use strip silence for this stuff here, let's just see. It's under, where is it? Under Edit? I think it's under Edit. I always use the shortcut. Yeah, it's under Edit here. So it's just strip silence here. Now, strip silence, what it does is it allows me to basically put a gate on this, and a gate just lets the loud parts through, and it makes the silent parts, the quiet parts, more silent. So, for example, let's see, if I have a good way to show strips, a good way to show a gate would be if I had some kind of a noise going on. Oops. Let's see if I have. Hold on. I just dragged the wrong thing on top of the wrong other thing. There we go. Just use this one I had set up here.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So if I have some kind of a plugin that creates noise, some kind of an amp. Let's throw an amp plugin on here. Probably an easy way to do this would be Guitar Rig. So let's put this one here, and I'm just going to get a noisy amp in here. Let's see here, guitar amps, and let's get some kind of an overdrive sound. Oh, not that. Nope. Let's see here.
One, 2, 3.
No, that's not giving me the sound that I want. Something that's going to like a hum. I don't know if any of these actually have a hum though. If you don't, because I don't have anything plugged into it, so it might not give me the hum that I'm looking for. I'm not really sure. You know what I'll do? I'll come back to this because I'm not really sure the best way to show this to y'all. Actually, you know what? Maybe just a live microphone. Hold on, let's see. Turn this down a little bit. Like this. Okay, yeah, we need a live microphone. So check this out. Hey, hey, hey. There's, yeah, okay. Hold on, let's. So here we go. You can hear all this noise that's happening here, like crazy amounts of noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gate right here. There we go. Hey, yeah, check. Hey. Let's see if we can get this to open up. Hey, check, 1, 2. Well, it's kind of hard to get it to open up. Let's see, check, 1, 2, hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can hear, okay, let's stop. Guitar Rig, get out of here. Okay. So you can hear that it's opening up. It's not a great example, but hopefully you kind of get the idea. With gates, what it does is it opens up and closes. Maybe you learned about it in Mod 1. I'm not really sure if you learned about it in Mod 1. We're going to explore these plugins in more detail. But really what I want to show you is the strip silence. It's kind of like a gate that you can see and you can manipulate here. Now, once again, the way we get to strip silence is the shortcut. I use the shortcut. It's Command U. That's here in the notes. strip silence menu. Wait, is it in the notes? Yeah, Command U is over here on the second page of the details. So Command U is there, and what we have here is once we open it up, you have to have something selected. So if you don't have anything selected, you're not going to see it working. So I'm going to go down here and select it. So now we can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my strip threshold, bring it up here so it edits all my little pieces here. And now I'm going to adjust my duration, and we can see here, if I hit strip, you see it put these little boxes around the loud parts. If I hit strip, it's going to take out all the quiet bits. So let's just go ahead and loop that. Oops, not loop it, play it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
And you can hear it chopped out the quiet parts, but it chopped out too much of the quiet parts. So this is where my clip pad here is going to come into play. Let me zoom out a little bit here so you can see what's going on. So here, if I adjust my pad on the end and the start point, it's going to go ahead and grab a little bit more of the beginning and the end, like that. And some of them work better than others. You can see like this one here is a little bit not working too well, but let me just hit the strip function here, and it pulls it out. And now unmute.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, and it went through and it cut these up. Now, it cut this one a little bit too much, so I can still drag it over. Because remember, oops, oh, we're still in shuffle mode. Remember, these clips are just edits of the clip, so I can still go back and make adjustments to them. And this is why I actually really like strip silence. If I'm trying to do some kind of a gate thing, I don't actually use a gate. I don't really like gates that much. I find them to be too fiddly. If I'm doing stuff live on a stage and I need to cut some noise out, then I'll use a gate. But otherwise, I don't really use a gate in the studio. That's my personal preference. I like to use strip silence. And this is something that the other DAWs do not have. This is a Pro Tools thing only. Logic, as far as I know, doesn't have this, and Ableton Live certainly doesn't have it. So this is a Pro Tools only thing, and it's really, really useful for getting rid of unwanted noise in your signal. So I use it quite a bit for things. Especially like vocals, or if you just want to cut out large, big chunks of things, like quiet bits, then you can use strip silence for this. So let me just pull up a different playlist here. And let's use this one here, and I'm going to show you one more time how to use it. I click on this down here, and I'm going to reset my end and start pads back to 0. I'm going to make adjustments here as much as possible. Command U, yeah, Command U is the quick key for it. Command U, yeah, and that's also in the notes here. It's just on the second page of the notes here, like this second page. Okay. So the threshold is going to set the level where the gate opens here. So my threshold, see how it adjusts what's going to be here like this? That's my threshold. And you can, just by clicking and dragging, you can see what it does. So I encourage you to click and drag across. The minimum duration is if you want it to make sure it has like a minimum gate time where it's open, and so it's not just cutting in and out too quickly. So what I do is I set my minimum duration. I try to set my minimum duration as low as possible because you don't want it to have too many. See how there's like a lot of little small things happening right here? You don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this low like this, and then move my minimum duration up a little bit. There we go. Oops. Like that. Maybe pull this back up like that. There we go. So this looks pretty good now. And then what I'll do after that is I set my start and end pad, the start pad here, just to make sure I get a little bit of the start point, and the end pad, just a little bit of the end point. Now you'll notice that some of them, once they get too close to each other, the boxes kind of combined. So my box, this box here combined with the other box in front of it, I'm just going to adjust this so it's not combined, just to make things a little bit we can see. And then I have 3 things I can click on here. I have strip, separate, and extract. And you notice how I went from right to left. Strip is the main one you're going to want to use. Click strip and it takes out the silent bits. If all I want to do is just separate these out into separate clips, but I don't want to delete anything, I just hit separate. And if I wanted to, for whatever reason, get rid of the loud bits, I can hit extract, and it's like an inverse gate. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that because I usually don't want to do the extract one. Only for me, I've only ever used it for like special effects and stuff like that. I don't really know why you'd use the extract. But like I said, I've used it for special effects and things like that, but that's about it, not for normal use. Then we've got our strip tool. So the strip is the one you're normally going to want to use. And then you listen to it again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Right? And as you can hear, everything sounds really good. And I've separated all those little bits of silence there between them. So that's a pretty cool way to use it. I highly recommend it. That's strip silence for doing stuff like just quick like this. All right, so just to look at the notes here. So these notes here talk about gate controls, and it talks about threshold, hold, attack, release. These are for a gate if you are going to use a gate. Threshold is basically where it sets where the gate opens and closes. Hold sets how long the gate will remain open. Attack is how long it takes to open, if it's quick or slow. And release is also quick or slow if it's going to close down. Essentially, this is the same thing with strip silence. The hold is how long the gate opens, and then attack and release are kind of like your start and end pads. So in here, the way we would apply strip silence one more time is you select the clip you want to apply strip silence to, you hit Command U, adjust the controls appropriately, and then hit apply. And again, the controls down here are threshold, it's the same as the gate threshold. Minimum strip duration is the same as the gate hold. It sets the minimum length, and then start and end pad or extra length on the beginning or the end of the clip. And again, the best way to learn about this stuff, to kind of get into it, is not just by listening to me talk about it, by trying it yourself. So please use strip silence on stuff. I expect for your assignment today for you to use strip silence on your counting. It's going to be a little bit frustrating to dial in those controls. You have to play with it to get it to work right. I just did it and I made it look really easy and quick, but it does take time to get used to it. I've used strip silence so many times in my life that I'm used to kind of messing with the controls. But that's how you get better at it. You have to use it. You have to practice with it. It is frustrating at first. Okay, so here's our applications. Strip cuts out the quiet bits, leaving the clip with the louder audio like a normal gate. Extract cuts out the loud bits, leaving the clips with soft audio. It's the opposite of a gate. It's like an inverse gate. And separate only separates the clips. Nothing is cut. Keep in mind, strip silence is non-destructive. You can still edit the clips after you've cut them. So what I can do here, and you can see I've got a nice little diagram of what strip silence does here. Let me just kind of zoom in on this down here. So the green part is the part it's going to keep, and the red part is the part it's going to strip out. And this part on the ends here in the beginning would be where I would apply my pad. So this would be the start pad, this would be the end pad, and it's going to make the adjustment to all these here. Or I can trim these, whatever I want to do, if I want to trim it later. So for example, if I go back in here and let's say this number 6 here, I wanted to trim it, I can click and drag it here and it's going to trim it.
6.
So I can click and drag this. But as you could hear when I went through it, actually everything sounded pretty good. Nothing was too cut off. So I would probably be okay with that edit job.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Right, that's all sounds pretty good. All right, let's do this. Let's take a 10-minute break and then come back and kind of finish out talking about playlists and comping playlists. And then we're also going to talk about our homework for today, the assignment that's assigned for you today, not homework, but your practical work. Okay, so we're going to take 10 minutes, be back at 11 a.m. All right.